Hi, so for LAI 574, the Exceptional Learner class, I watched the movie A Beautiful Mind, which was released back in 2001. The reason I chose this movie as opposed to others from a rather large list was because it roughly was based on the Nobel Prize winning mathematician John Forbes Nash, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So the movie is based on the Nash biography, which is also titled A Beautiful Mind, who features Russell Crowe as Nash and Jennifer Connelly as his wife, Alicia Nash. So for those of you that haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend you watch it, especially before you hear any spoilers from me, so fair warning. But Nash is portrayed as a slightly socially awkward person, but befriends several other math and science graduate students while he attends Princeton, which this includes his roommate, Charles. So Nash is seen like fumbling through new encounters with women and peers, but eventually graduates and accepts a professor position at MIT. It's there that he meets Alicia, and who's one of his students, and she intrigues him by being able to solve complicated mathematical problems that he sets on the board, which sets her apart. She goes to meet him after after a class one day, and is able to solve it as opposed to her other peers, especially male peers. And that catches Nash's attention. They eventually fall in love and then marry. So as the story continues, so it develops then over several years, Nash starts to become, he becomes kind of, the story becomes kind of haunting as a Department of Defense agent, William Parcher, finds Nash and convinces him that the Soviets are conspiring and setting forth their plan, and they're sending secret codes through, say, like magazines and newspapers. And that Parcher tells Nash that he's the one that is able to decipher the codes because due to his mathematical skills and backgrounds in solving patterns and complicated problems. So Nash starts to become more paranoid and behave even more erratically than he did before, whereas before he was more portrayed as somebody who was just kind of awkward and maybe fumbling through social encounters. Now he's starting to become more erratic and paranoid with different situations and going out in public. So eventually, Alicia convinces him that he's been hallucinating. There's a moment in the films where she presents him with evidence that kind of shows that he's hallucinating Parcher and also Charles, his roommate back from college, who slips in and out of the story every so often. So Nash begrudgingly goes to a psychiatric facility where he receives insulin shock therapy sessions, which obviously I do not think we do now, but he's eventually released under the condition that he takes antipsychotic medications, but they create more negative side effects as he notices, so he stops taking them, and that creates more of a problem because once he stops taking the medications, even though they had some negative side effects, he starts to go back to his erratic and paranoid behavior. So Nash suffered from visual hallucinations and had an increased sense of paranoia, which made him really frantic and anxious. And at times even aggressive, so also sometimes often forgetful. So, but it's also noted that the real life Nash suffered from auditory hallucinations and possible delusions, not so much visual hallucinations. So it's because of that difference that I think that perhaps Nash's character was slightly exaggerated. But after doing some additional research, I did find that in real life, Nash felt that the movie didn't demonstrate the severity of the negative side effects that movie Nash had after the trip to the psychiatric facility. So maybe in that case also some of the character's attributes were toned down, and maybe he wasn't portrayed as some of the side effects as portrayed severe enough. But I also found out, sadly, though, last year in May, that John Nash and Alicia both had died in a car crash while riding in a taxi on the New Jersey Turnpike. So up until last year, they were both still living, and he was coping and finding different therapies and different ways to cope with schizophrenia. But I felt that the movie and that the Nash character was relatable. However, since I don't know anybody personally with schizophrenia, I cannot say with much confidence if the general signs and symptoms, or if the general signs and symptoms were relatable to somebody who has been diagnosed with schizophrenia. But I do think that due to how real life John Nash reviewed the movie positively and for the most part accurately, that that it is possibly on par with somebody in real life who does have schizophrenia. I hope you watch a movie. It's very good. Thanks.